Hey everyone, and welcome back to Remember This Tech. Today's video we're going to be doing a really short video, and it's going to be specifically testing Battlefield 6 beta. And we're going to be using the system behind me, which features an i7 6700K and an NVIDIA GeForce 1070 8GB video card. And the system sports 16 gig dual channel 3200 megahertz RAM and just a SSD for loading the game. What's special about this system, or rather it doesn't meet all the recommended specs for running the game. For instance, they recommend for 1080p at least to get 30 FPS average with low settings. The bare minimum the developers recommend at least a GeForce RTX 2060 or a Radeon RX 5600 XT or even an ARC A380 with at least 6 gig of video memory. Now the 1070 has 8 gigs, so it should meet that one bare minimum spec there. It also calls for an i5 8400 or AMD Ryzen 2600 6-core processor with 16 gig of dual channel memory. So I did meet the 16 gig requirement there, but the processor spec I did not meet. And there's also two more tiers for balance and performance mode, and the balance specs for 1440p at minimum of 60 FPS with high settings, and the performance specs are 1080p 80 plus FPS with low settings. They both need you to have at least a GeForce RTX 3060 Ti or Radeon 6700 XT or an Intel Arc Battlemage 580 card. The video memory card is minimum of 8 gig, and the 6700 XT obviously has 12 gig, and a Core i7-10700 or a Ryzen 7 3700X and 16 gig of system memory. And I also heard talk that it requires the secure boot for the system to run the game, but unless you bypass it, you can't even get Windows 11 installed. But I have Windows 11 on here. I'm not going to tell you, that's kind of bypass, but or not. So basically, let's see how the system runs Battlefield 6 beta, if it will launch, and if we can maintain a basic 30 FPS minimum. If you're playing Battlefield 6 beta on lower specs or higher specs, comment below on what you're running and what your average FPS is for your system specs below. I'd like to know. So without further ado, let's get right into it and launch the beta. Come on, let's go! So I'm pretty sure the system doesn't have secure boot, TPM, because it's just too old. It's a H110MC security. Maybe it's right here. Password, minimum length, admin, user password. Boot. Secure boot. Secure boot state is enabled. Other OS. This is going to probably brick the system, but let's see if it works. Why am I saying it's probably going to brick the system is because, well, normally you want to install the operating system with UEFI ahead of time, because it'll normally screw up the bootloader, the MBR, etc. What I'm trying to say is it should have been set up previously, and it doesn't have TPM 2.0, so it's probably not going to work. But it'll probably brick the operating system, and the beta is not going to run without secure mode of some type enabled. So let's see how it works. Maybe Windows 11 will handle, enabling this after the fact better than Windows 10 used to, because they usually didn't. But so we are back into Windows here. Let's log in and try to relaunch Battlefield 6 beta. if I can get my password right. It looks like I might be launching this. So tip to all you out there, enable secure boot on your system. Looks like it's going to accept it. So there's your fix to running it. Whether it's going to run great on this 6700K CPU or not with only 16 GB RAM, we're going to find out. So let's dive right into it, shall we? Apparently there's not a lot of presets you can choose for your graphics, I guess. But if you choose the initial and then you hit this up here before you go into the game, the little gear wheel on the graphics, and you can modify these as you go. Let's say it's balanced and I have low graphics quality. At low quality, we're going to test it, and then we're going to go up as far as the quality goes and see how it works. 1080p is what I'm running at, so when it's yeah. So let's back out of here. And I don't know, I mean, how to play, what to play. I mean, I'm gonna die. I suck at these games. At 1080p low settings, this system pulled an average around 56.7 FPS, which is just above that 60 FPS sweet spot. Not too bad for older hardware. However, the minimum FPS dropped to around 27.5 and the 0.1% lows hit just 8.4 FPS, showing that the occasional stutters or drops are very noticeable, especially during heavy combat or large explosions. The 1% low of 37.1 FPS is a bit more stable, suggesting playable but inconsistent performance overall. If you're planning on playing this competitively, you might want to lower some settings or consider a GPU and a CPU upgrade to smooth things out. But overall, not too horrible for this aged hardware.
Bravo has been secured. Be advised, the enemy has secured Charlie.
Alright, here we go. So I'm going to start the counter. Okay, we are 97% of the the graphics card utilization, which is great. We're only using 6.7 gig of memory, and we are getting a little low on some of the 1%, but yeah, I think we're doing okay. And the visual quality is upgraded there. At 1080p ultra settings, the i7 6700K and GTX 1070 combo starts to show its age. We saw an average frame rate of 40.8 FPS with a maximum around 49.7, meaning the GPU is pretty much working at its limit, hitting around 98% utilization throughout most of the gameplay. The 1% low dropped to 27.6 FPS and the 0.1% low hit just 22.6, indicating noticeable stuttering during most intense scenes, especially when there were lots of explosions, particles, or dynamic lighting. While still playable, the experience isn't exactly smooth, and these dips can definitely affect your aim or reaction time in competitive moments. If you're aiming for fluid gameplay, this setup does better on medium or low settings, or with a GPU CPU upgrade. Like, I need ammo. Hello. I ran out of ammo.
Delta has been secured.
Objective Charlie neutralized.
Okay, guys, keep those heads down. We spotted an enemy sniper to your east.
Can I pick up anything? No. So, yeah, I got a first knife kill ever. And, yeah, well. So some of you out there may be screaming at the screen, of course you would never want to play that with those settings, or you don't want to play that with the stutteriness. Well, a lot of people ain't made of money, and this may be what they have. And if you can get by on those settings, it still looks okay, and you're acceptable with some stutteriness, and you're still having fun, then that's all that matters. End of story. Now, ideally, you're going to want to upgrade to get a smoother experience. That's a no-brainer. I am not saying otherwise, but I like to test the extremes and the limits of some of the older hardware, the older GPUs, to see exactly what you can get out of it. Squeezing more life out of older hardware. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's not usable. So in the end, even though the i7 6700K and the 1070 8 gig card are running below Battlefield's minimum specs, they still manage to hang in there, especially at 1080p low settings. Ultra settings definitely push this hardware to its limits, especially in high explosive and high action sequences. So you definitely feel the stutter in the game, but it's still playable in certain scenes. So your sweet spot here would be low or medium settings if you have this older hardware. So if you're gaming on older hardware, older gear, you don't have to sit Battlefield 6 out, but those noticeable lags and stutters are probably gonna get you killed more often than not. But your next step would probably be a system CPU platform and GPU upgrade if you want to play smoother. So thanks for coming along on this little exploration journey, and thanks for watching. Remember this tech.